murder of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. However, they all gathered around Zayd ibn Abidin, which was the son of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, the uncle of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. If you ever heard of Zaydis, the Houthis that are in Yemen right now, they're Zaydis, they look up to Zayd as their Imam. And he was known as somebody who was revolutionary, someone who stood up, who revolted against those who were corrupt. And if you look at it right now, a lot of the thought or the thinking of Zaydis revolve around this, that always rise up against oppression, versus, you know, some, even amongst our schools of thought before, many of them tried to lay low and never rose up. Only recently is it like this. But at that time, Zayd was the one who would rise up. And however, Imam Sadiq agreed with his uncle. However, he didn't see it as the right time to revolt. And he saw it as a difficult time and would rather prefer to be patient than to overtly revolt. However, Zayd gained a lot of support from Iraq to rise up against the Umayyads, but the Umayyads were able to crush him and to pacify his rebellion. And because of that, for many years, they hanged his body at the gates of Kufa. As a reminder of what will happen, you know, if you rise up. As well as his son Yahya bin Zayd also received the same fate because he followed his dad's footsteps, his father's footsteps. And because of all this, the Abbasids started coming into power, or started to challenge the Umayyads' power. The Abbasids would use the slogan because they came from the same family, from Bani Hashim, as well as the descendants of Rasulullah, or descendants of Rasulullah. Ahl Bayt came from Bani Hashim, the Abbasids came from Bani Hashim as well. And their slogan for revolting against the Umayyads was, their slogan was, the right to rule is for the family of the Prophet. The right to rule is for the Ahl Bayt. That was their slogan that they came with. And many people actually followed them. Two well-known individuals, known as Abu Salma and Abu Muslim al-Khurasani. Both these individuals were followers of Ahl Bayt, were followers of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, and they gave their bay'ah to a person by the name of Abdul Abbas al-Safa. Al-Safa was the first Abbasid Khalifa. So these two people that were lovers and followers of the Ahl Bayt of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq gave bay'ah to Safa because Safa would use this slogan: I want to revolt against the Umayyad to reinstate the power, reinstate the rule of Ahl Bayt. However, Imam Sadiq never got involved in that. He never got involved in this whole political arena, mainly because he saw the intentions, the true intentions of the Abbasids, of people like Abdul Abbas al-Safa. And actually, when the Abbasids were able to take over, they were able to take over Baghdad. Abu Muslim al-Khurasani was one of the people that he gave bay'ah to. He was the one that brought his armies and took over Baghdad for Bani Abbas, for al-Safa, and he ended up dying at the hands of al-Safa. So those two individuals that were lovers of Ahl Bayt ended up being murdered by the same Abbasid Khalifa. And after that happened, the Khalifa of the time, the Abbasid Khalif, Mansur, oppressed the Ahl Bayt even more than the Umayyads did. Especially the descendants of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And there's a quote from Imam Sadiq saying that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam stating that the Ansar, so the early people who lived in Medina, the Ansar had invited the Holy Prophet to Medina under the oath that they would protect him and they would protect his descendants as they would protect their own kin, their own sons. But today, the descendants of those very Ansars, meaning the Abbasids, But today, the descendants of those very Ansars act as silent onlookers, and none stands up to protect the Prophet's offspring. So the Abbasids that are killing all these, the descendants of Imam Hassan, none of the descendants of the Ansar are protecting them. And even today, when the Bani Abbas were building a wall around Baghdad, which was their capital, if you look at the walls that are in ruins right now in Iraq, there are still inscriptions on the walls. And the inscriptions state, in the building material of this wall, many descendants of Imam Hassan ibn Ali were buried alive. So even the walls that you see right now in Iraq, it states this in its inscriptions. But in spite of all of these, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq still silently was propagating the teachings of the Ahl Bayt through the schools, through the madrasas. Jazakallah khair. And even those who didn't see him as an infallible Imam and didn't see them as an Imam, they still respected him. They still respected him due to his knowledge. And because of that, Mansur, the Khalifa at that time, would send ulama to challenge his knowledge, and they would all still fail against him. And one interesting point to note was because of this arrogance and this jealousy that Mansur, the Khalifa at that time, had towards Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, it was at this time when he coined the term Rafidun, the rejectors. And that word still carries on till today. The Rafidun, people who reject. And it was him who coined the word Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah, to say that I am the majority and you Rafidah, the rejectors, are the minority. It was this individual that coined these terms. And Imam alayhi salam Imam Ja'far alayhi salam passed away, achieved Shahada in the 10th year of the reign of Mansur. And it is mentioned by historians that he was killed by the Caliph's orders, in which he was given poisonous grapes, which caused his death. It's well known that Imam Ja'far Sadiq, a lot of our hadith come from him because he had that ability, that time, that political turmoil where the Umayyads were fighting the Abbasids. He had more freedom to talk amongst people, and many of his students became founders of the Sunni schools of thought. So say alhamdulillah that at least they were able to take advice from Imam Ja'far Sadiq, an infallible Imam, so that majority of Muslims still retain the correct fiqh to some degree. So with that, I'll end my speech. Sallallahu Muhammad wa
Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. A'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan al-la'in al-rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa bihi nasta'in. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you, Brother Taha, for that very informative biography of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. I just want to make a very minor Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Just a very minor point. Brother Taha mentioned that the Houthi movement in Yemen is Zaydi. Although the majority of the people in the country of Yemen are Zaydi, the Houthi movement, its leaders and its ideology is Ithna Ashari. And we have some brothers, some ulama in the city of Qom who are from Yemen, and they know the family personally. The leader, Sayyid Abdul Malik Badr al-Din al-Houthi, and his late brother, Sayyid Hassan Badr al-Din al-Houthi, both of them who spent about almost 15 years in Qom. They are Ithna Ashari, and in their schools in Yemen, the books that they use for fiqh, for aqa'id, and for everything else are Ithna Ashari books. In any case, Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, today is the anniversary of his shahadat, and we heard about his biography. Just to add a few things to kind of help us to understand a little bit more about the specific role of Imam Sadiq and how important it was. We see that amongst other Muslims, we are sometimes known as the Ja'fari school of thought. What does it mean to have a madhab? What does it mean to have a school of thought in Islam? What are these terms, and why do we have them? Shouldn't Islam be a singular religion? Well, in the belief of Quran and in the belief of the Holy Prophet, and in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Tawheed of Allah. All of these things are unanimous amongst the Muslims. However, after the death of Holy Prophet, we saw that people's religious questions were unable to be answered, oftentimes based on geographical location. And why I say that is because we see that the Quran, although it does contain all knowledge, it is not apparent except for to the one who has inherited Quran. Quran is an inheritance of the Holy Prophet. And in order for somebody to understand it properly, they have to be able to understand the process of revelation, and only infallible Imam can do that. Aside from infallible Imam, many of the deeper doors of knowledge of Quran are closed to people. With that being said, that means that when fiqh issues occur, sometimes people cannot find their answer in the Quran. Hence, they have to go to narrations of Prophet. At the time after death of Holy Prophet, there were a number of companions. But those companions, for example, only heard so many hadith from Prophet. Maybe they heard 100 or 200 or less. And what they had heard from Holy Prophet was not sufficient to answer all of their religious questions. For us, for the followers of Ithna Ashari belief, the followers of Wilayat, we believed in the infallible Imam who had the answer to all of the fiqh questions and other questions as well, aqa'id questions. Because they were the inheritors. We know Amir al-Mu'mineen is inheritor of Prophet. Ana madinatul ilm wa aliyun babaha. فَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْمَدِينَةَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ فَلْيَأْتِهَا مَنْ بَابَهَا. Right? I mean, it's very clear hadith. The Holy Prophet mentioned, I am the city of knowledge, Ali is the gate, whoever wishes to enter and to obtain from this wisdom and from this knowledge, they have to go through the door, which is Ali. So those who did not go through that door, they were forced to create their own essential, what we call schools of thought, so that they can answer people's religious questions. There's what happens if, for example, you did this in the prayer? Does it break the prayer or does it not break the prayer? Well, they had to come up with an answer, for example. How did they come up with an answer if they don't have access to narration specific about that? Well, they had to come up with rules. How can we derive rulings based on the narrations that we have, Quran that we have, etc.? And they came up with these varying schools of thought. That's why we say that there are schools of thought in Islam. That's where it comes from. There's a very interesting history. For those who are wishing to read about it, one of our very famous historians, his name is Agha Buzurg Tehrani, one of the most famous historians we've had amongst Shias. He wrote an excellent article about this subject, about the history of ijtihad, about the history of creation of these schools of thought, and how they became limited to the four that exist amongst Sunnis now: Hanbali, Shafi'i, Maliki, and Hanafi. And it's available actually in English, as well as translated from Farsi into English. You can find it online. In any case, so that's why we have these different schools of thought. So Imam Sadiq ﷺ has essentially become known as the head of our school of thought, which we call many times often referred to as Jafari Madhab. Why is that the case? Because during the political turmoil between the period in the transition period from Bani Umayyah transferring into Bani Abbas, as Brother Taha mentioned, there was an opportune time, not just for Shias, there was actually an opportune time even for amongst the Sunni ulama to preach. Because even under Bani Umayyah, many of the Sunni ulama were oppressed. So they were allowed essentially a freedom to spread their ideas and their ideology, and so at that time you saw, for example, the spreading of one of the more famous ones, Abu Hanifa, Hanafi school of thought, and at the same time Imam Sadiq ﷺ. So because Imam Sadiq was able to teach very openly in the city of Medina, according to hadith, if I remember correctly, he had around 4,000 students, and he was able to teach the fiqh very properly and to answer people's religious questions. Those who started to follow, they became, okay, these people are followers of the Ja'fari school, Imam Sadiq ﷺ school. So till now, many times amongst Sunnis, they refer to this madhab as the Ja'fari madhab. And it's one of the recognized madahib. The Al-Azhar school, which is considered to be the preeminent theological school of Sunnism, has recognized officially Ja'fari as the fifth madhab that is acceptable in Islam. There were many others, actually. There are 5 now, essentially, but there were, if you refer to history, there were actually hundreds of schools of thought, but they were driven into 4 during the time of the Crusades. Actually, specifically Salahuddin Ayyubi. When he had gone and taken over Egypt, he had forced the madhab into 4 for various political reasons. In any case, so Imam Sadiq ﷺ was living in this type of time period where there was a flourishing of ilm and knowledge, and he was capable of preaching. And we see that amongst all of the A'imma, ﷺ, the majority of our narrations, the overwhelming majority of our narrations come from Imam Sadiq. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of narrations from Imam Sadiq ﷺ. And if you go through the hadith books, you'll see most of them are coming from Imam Sadiq Abu Abdullah, which was his kunya. Most of the hadiths are coming from him. Now, Imam Sadiq ﷺ, during this time period, was living in the city of Medina. And in fact, all the A'imma had always either lived in Medina or had mentioned about moving to Medina. And it seems to be that we have hadith also that the city of Medina is known to be city of mu'mineen and believers. And it is the city of the family of Holy Prophet. And it's also a very strategic city, because every year people come to the Hajj, and then after they go to the Hajj in Mecca, they go and they visit Medina. And this happened from the very early days of Islam till now. And due to this phenomenon of Hajj, the Imams ﷺ were able to reach a very wide audience of people coming from all over the world, especially Imam Sadiq. Given the freedom that he had, he was able to reach most of these people during the time of the Hajj. And this is probably one of the reasons why Medina is held so high in esteem by Ahlul Bayt ﷺ. And that, of course, it was a city of Prophet. It was a city that accepted Holy Prophet. It was a city that Holy Prophet is buried in. And it's a city that more Imams are buried in than any other city. So, what are some things that we can take advantage of in terms of the life of Imam Sadiq ﷺ and some of his advice? So one of the things that we want to understand from the life of Imam Sadiq ﷺ, which is exceptionally important, especially in today's time, and we spoke about it last week and the week before that, and that's the issue of Islamic unity. We see that Imam Sadiq ﷺ lived during a time where there was a multitude of different types of thinking, different types of preaching of Islam. Now, in our opinion, and of course in the opinion of Imam Sadiq ﷺ, these things were not correct. Don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. We're never going to say that, for example, that fiqh rulings which are not coming from our Ummah, we consider them to be accurate, right? Or other theological ideas, we don't consider them to be accurate. That's fine. They don't consider ours to be accurate. That's fine. That's not a problem. Imam Sadiq ﷺ established for us, look, it's okay. Let the people have a different opinion. That's fine. Everyone will answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So long as a person is not doing something that completely takes them outside of Islam, okay, no worries. We can live together. We can have peace together. In fact, we have hadith. Some companions, they came to Imam Sadiq ﷺ and they would tell him some things like this. They would say, for example, I sit in the masjid and I answer people's fiqh questions. When people come to me from other schools, I ask them which madhab you're asking about. And they tell me, for example, this madhab falani. I give them answer based on that madhab. And then when our followers come, I give them answer based on your rulings. Imam Sadiq said, what you're doing is fine. What you're doing is acceptable. See, there's a very wide street in Islam. Islam is, the Ahlul Bayt have always advocated unity. we never see imams come and become divisive in that way. To make takfir on other people, for example, or to push others out, or to belittle others. This has never been the school of Ahlul Bayt. And we see that very specifically with Imam Sadiq, because he was dealing directly with these people. They would come, these different heads of different schools of thought would come and discuss with Imam Sadiq. Their students would come and discuss with Imam Sadiq. They would discuss with Imam Sadiq's students. And Imam would have healthy forms of debate with them. Now, it doesn't mean that we agree with their ideas. And we believe that everyone will stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for judgment. The hadiths of Imams are clear, and their beliefs are clear as well. We believe, for example, you have to pray in this way, you have to follow walayat like this, and otherwise it will be problematic. We are very clear about that. And they are very clear about their belief. That doesn't mean, however, that people cannot coexist. That we cannot have a mutual type of respect. They are Muslim, we are Muslim, and we have to abide by the laws that Islam tells us to give to rights that we give to other Muslims. And it became abundantly clear during the time of Imam Sadiq. And let me make it even more clear how kind Imam was to everyone. We have hadith one time, one of the companions of Imam Sadiq والسلام, used to see Imam leave at night. And this is a trait that all the A'immah had. He would leave at night and come back and they don't know where he went. So one night he decides to follow Imam والسلام, and he sees Imam's carrying a very heavy bag full of food. And he went to a very poor area in Medina where who lived? Where it was people who were nawasib. It was known that these people, they hated Ahlul Bayt. These were enemies of Ahlul Bayt. These were people that hated Shia and they hated Imam Sadiq. Well, they didn't recognize him. He would go there at night to the poor areas and distribute food to them. The companion became shocked. He said, Imam, these are our followers? He said, no. He said, not our followers. He said, but they are being oppressed. They are madloom. Their poverty and their ignorance is due to the oppression of government. See how kind and how understanding and how merciful Imam Sadiq ﷺ was with people. Today, I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to read Ayatollah Ulama Sayyid Sistani's letter to the Mujahideen, those who are fighting against ISIS. If you have the opportunity to read this letter, it will really open your eyes to the mercy that Islam has for people. And look at the advice that Sayyid Sistani is giving to these fighters. And you will see that it mirrors exactly the akhlaq and ideology of the Ahlul Bayt. He said, don't be too tough with them. Don't oppress them. Understand that these people are oppressed. They've been brainwashed. When you go to fight them, don't go past the boundaries that Islam has set. Don't enter into their homes. Don't touch their property. Show respect. Follow advice about them. Show good akhlaq. You are representatives of the school of Ahlul Bayt even to these people. Yes, we are fighting them. Yes, they are trying to kill us. Yes, they are committing atrocities against us. But he said they are oppressed people. They don't know what they're doing. This is Islam. This is Islam of Ahlul Bayt. This is Islam of Imam Sadiq. So that's one way we can look at Imam Sadiq's life and take a very deep lesson out of unity. Another advice, and because this is Shahadat of Imam Sadiq, I will mention this. The last advice Imam gave to people. Abi Basir was one of the companions of Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq, a very good companion. Very well known amongst the narrators of a hadith. He is known to be one of the most trustworthy of all narrators. He was actually blind, and in Arabic sometimes they give people what's like an ironic name. So he's blind, but they said he's the father of sight. In any case, Abu Basir, he went to house of Imam Sadiq والسلام, at the end of life of Imam Sadiq, and one of the wives of Imam Sadiq came to answer the door. He asked, how is Abu Abdullah? He said, he passed from this world. He said, tell me, did he say anything? She said, Ya Abu Basir, we saw something very strange. Ajib. We saw Imam Sadiq والسلام, on his deathbed. And he was just this far from death. He opened his eyes wide. And he said, call everyone in the home. Everyone. And then we brought all the family, all the wives, all the children, everyone. He surrounded them. He looked at everybody. And he said this. He said, the person who doesn't take their salat seriously, they will not receive our shafa'ah. And this hadith is sahih. أتقوا يوما لا تجزي نفس عن نفس شيئا ولا يقبل منها شفاعة. It's Quran. Have fear of that day when no soul shall help another soul and there will be no intercession for them. Quran is telling you, have fear. If you don't have intercession, then you have to fear. This is a horrible day. The day of judgment. There is no intercession. Imam made it very clear. For the one who doesn't take their prayer seriously. This is not my words. This is Imam's words on his deathbed in an authentic narration. If you don't take your salat seriously, you will be in very serious trouble. And the salatu amud ad-din, prayer is the 10th pole of religion. And even this is not just the saying of Imam. See, Imam, their sayings are the mirror of Quran. Look at Quran. Quran makes it very clear. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَّلِينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. It's Quran. Wail. Wail in Arabic, it means woe upon somebody. And Imam Baqir والسلام, he said wail is a part of the Jahannam. It's a part of the hellfire. It's a well in the hellfire. They call wail. Wail lil mustalin. This is Quran. Quran says wail on the people who pray. It doesn't say those who don't pray. Wail lil mustalin. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. And those who they pray, but with their prayer they are not good. They do sahu. Sahu means forgetfulness. That means they don't take it seriously. And people ask Ahl Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam, what does it mean to have sahu in the prayer? What does it mean to be sahu? And it says it's that person who, when the time for prayer comes, it's the answer of Ahl Bayt, it's the answer of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. He said it's that person when the time for prayer comes and they don't have an excuse to delay their prayer, but they delay it anyway. So they fall under this category. They fall under this category of the person who doesn't take their salat serious. It's a very serious issue. Prayer. إِنَّ الصَّلَاةُ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ. Right? Quran mentions أَقَمَ الصَّلَاةِ. Establish the prayer. إِنَّ الصَّلَاةُ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ. Establish the prayer, for surely prayer is what will keep you away from debauchery, fahsha, and munkar, evil. I don't know how many times Quran has mentioned about salat. It is the connection that you will need to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to open the doors of ma'rifah for you, that give you a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's tawheed. Otherwise you will be in heedlessness. If you are heedless, you don't take your prayer seriously, you can't get shafa. And you have to understand it's a metaphysical reality. Shafa, intercession, is a metaphysical reality. It's not like what we think in this world. That, for example, Imam can just choose and say, okay, I'll give you shafa, I don't give you shafa. No, you have to understand by basic of the word shafi. It means like a partner, something that has to come together. That means there has to be a sharing. Even the words walaya, tawassul, all of these words, when you understand them, it means a very strong connection where one thing is almost like it's part of another. That's what walaya, to have walaya, means that when you don't know where one starts, the other ends. That's what the word actually means. They're interconnected. Tawassul, same thing. Shafa'a, same thing. It's a reality that in that world, you have to have some type of relation with Imam in order to get the Shafa'a. The more your relation is, the more you will be able to get that intercession. The rest of you will become cleansed. If you don't take Salat seriously, you can never enter into Imam's wilayah. You can't. Hence, that's why Imam said that at the end of his life. That those who don't take their prayer seriously, they won't get our Shafa'a. It's not something that just happens, arbitrarily. This world has rules, that world has rules. And very rarely do rules bend. For example, you take a look at the world that we live in now. It's governed by laws of physics and things like that. See, our understanding of Shafa and understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and these things is often very skewed. Does Allah answer du'as? Yes, He does. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intercede in every manner? Of course He does. Now, for example, if I drive my car off a cliff, I can pray and pray and pray. The chance of me crashing is probably 99.9999 forever percent. Is it possible Allah can stop the car from falling? Of course He can. How often does it happen? This world has its rules. That other world also has its own rules, has its own laws, and you have to understand them properly. You can't expect that, for example, the laws of this universe are going to bend for you, or the laws of that reality are going to bend for you. It's not going to happen. It's just not the way things work. So, take this advice very seriously, especially on this occasion of Imam Sadiq's Shahadat. This is the Imam's will to you. This is Imam's last will and testament. If you call yourself Ja'fari and you are following this school of thought, take this lesson. If you just take one thing from this, take the prayer very seriously. When it comes time to pray, pray. Make it easy for yourself. If you don't have anything going on, it's okay. Just stop. Go and pray. If you have something very important going on, no problem. Finish it after you're done. Do your prayer. Don't delay the prayer when it's not needed. Don't enter into prayer haphazardly. Concentrate. Get the benefit from it. Earn that intercession. This is your salvation on the line. It's not something to be toyed with. So we're going to end here, and shall open the floor for questions or comments. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى محمد. Does anyone have any questions? Yes?
So you say that there are hundreds of schools of thought, jurisprudential schools. Can you go into a bit more detail as to why it was made into four, why those four were chosen?
Well, I can tell you about some of them. I don't recall the exact reasons for why all four were chosen. But, for example, Hanafi school. What ended up happening is that some schools became more popular than others due to very specific political reasons. There was a famous judge by the name of Yahya, Qadi Yahya, I can't recall the last name, and he was a Hanafi, and he won favor with some people in the Abbasi court. So after winning that favor with some people in the Abbasi court, they decided, okay, well, you know what, under this governance here, we just want to have Hanafi. And he pushed that. And it was the same with some of the other ones. So what you found is that some of these schools had more popularity than others due to political prevalence. When Salah ad-Din Ayyubi had entered into Egypt, it was the largest school at that time. And it was, till now, to today, Al-Azhar is the largest Sunni school. And it was the first established Islamic university, official university. Although Medina did have classes even before Al-Azhar, it wasn't an official school, like this is the school of so on and so forth, and here's how it's going to run, it has an administration and so on. And Medina was more informal. For example, Imam Sadiq is teaching here, another person teaching there, and they have their classes in this masjid in their home, and everyone knows it's a city of learning. But this, Al-Azhar was a very formal school. in that school there was a number of different schools of thought happening at that time. But also it was under the control of the Fatimiyun, who were Ismaili. They were Ismaili. And although they allowed freedom for these other schools to teach, the official government religion was Ismaili for the Fatimiyun. Those who are not familiar, Ismailism is a religion which believes up until the time of Imam Sadiq, alayhi salatu wassalam, and he had one of his sons by the name of Ismail, and they believe that he inherited the imamate. This is a long discussion that I'm not going to go into, but we don't believe that, obviously. We believe that the imamate from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam went to Imam Musa Qadam. Just to make a point here, because we were talking about Imam Sadiq, at the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam's death, the issue of imamate was a little bit confusing. And it became even more confusing after the death of Imam Qadam. The reason being is that the political situation was very dangerous by the time of death of Imam Sadiq. And they were looking to actually kill. They had an order from the government to kill whoever was the inheritor of Imam Sadiq. So Imam Sadiq, in his will, he left like 6 or so different inheritors, one of them being the Khalifa himself. And in any case, so Salahuddin Ayyubi had gone into Egypt after the taking over Jerusalem. As you guys are aware, some of you, they made that movie a few years ago, kind of, I forgot what it was called.
Kingdom of Heaven.
Kingdom of Heaven, something. Anyway, regardless, so many people are familiar with Salahuddin. And so after this conquest in the Palestine, he had moved over into Egypt. So he had gone in, and of course he was against the Fatimiyun government. He ransacked the government. And he brought in this idea that we have to limit the schools of thought. He said that, what's happening is that there are too many ideologies. It's becoming out of control. That's his own opinion. This is getting out of control. We have too many, madahibs. It's not uniform. It's becoming too confusing. So we have to make Islam more unified and more united, and basically under their own banner. So I don't know exactly why those 4 were chosen. I can tell you Hanafi, because at that time was very popular, and that was because during the Abbasid time, Hanafism spread far and wide for political reasons. The other 3, I'm not exactly sure why specifically those 3 were chosen. I think it may have also done something with popularity. But that's essentially what happened. So once they established those 4 there, and since Al-Azhar was known as to be the preeminent school, it just, over time, it just started becoming, okay, all the other ones got eliminated, and there was these 4. Now, even today, there are other schools of thought that still exist, but they're so minor. There's a few. For example, there's one called Ibadi, which is very similar actually to Khawarij. It's an ideology of Khawarij. There's also Zaydis, right? But even amongst the 4 madahib, the Hanafi, Maliki, Hanbali, and Shafi'i, you're going to find so many different opinions, and so many even theological opinions. I mean, it's very varying. It's at this point in history, it's very, very difficult to even say, okay, what actually makes somebody Hanafi, or what makes them Hanbali, what makes them Shafi'i. It's not even clear anymore. It's become so convoluted, but they still use these terms. Originally, it was because, okay, Abu Hanifa, or for example, Malik, or Idris ibn Shafi, had these opinions, had this opinion on theology, had this opinion on how to derive rulings of fiqh, so whoever follows his opinion becomes part of that. Now it's become so changed, it's become very, very different. And now also amongst the Sunnis, there's a movement to just get rid of all the schools of thought. Right, so.
And become Salafi.
Salafi, and there's other things, yeah. So, I mean, it's a very, inshallah. I won't comment further. Yes?
You were talking about the pray and how important it is, and Muslim people, when they passed away, they put it in a will to buy pray and fasting. I wanted to know what's the logic behind this? What's your opinion?
To buy prayer and fasting? You mean to make up prayers that they've missed?
Yeah, then after they pass the
Sure. So, I mean, this is something you have to do. If you owe praying and fasting, for example, in your life, let's say my life or whoever's life, they missed this many prayers or this many fasts, if they don't make it up by the time that they die, by the time that they're at their death, they have to allocate in their will for it to be made up. This is something wajib, everyone has to do it. And that's okay. In fiqh, that's acceptable. There are some rules of how those things have to be done. I'm not going to go into that because it's just too many things. Fasting has its rules of how it has to be made up, and prayer has its rules how it has to be made up. The wajib of that falls on the eldest son of the father, and mustahab on the eldest son of the mother. The other children can assist in doing that, although they are not obligated to do so. Also, others can assist as well if they wish, but they're not obligated. But it has to be made up. The rules of how to make those up, there are many. But you can hire somebody, you can do them yourselves, so on and so forth. However, missing prayer and missing fasting without excuse is a sin. And not being organized or disciplined enough to make up what you've missed before you died is also problematic. A person should do their best to do so. So a person can't just say, okay, I've missed 1 year of prayer and I'm just going to wait till I die and have somebody else. No, it's not acceptable. I mean, yes, somebody else can do it, inshallah, maybe forgives that person, but this is a sin. A person has to make up their own debts. Yes?
I want to mention that one reason can be like, if, for example, I want to pray for my father in his absence after he dies, I make sure at least I do my prayers, so that, because one benefit is for the person who's actually doing it for the deceased ones, for the ones that are gone. One benefit is towards the life people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Whoever does that, for example, let's say my father passed, alhamdulillah, my father is alive, but if one day he were to pass, then, and I make up the prayer for him, if he has any missing prayers, then inshallah both myself and my father will benefit, yes.
I think so. The person is died, it's not close their life until the judgment day. That's the reason everything we do in here, they receive.
Yes, of course. I mean, you can do things for people who have passed away. But I think her specific question was about making up the wajibat.
But she's asking, how can they receive?
Oh, how can they receive things? Oh, because a person who has died doesn't mean that everything's over. They've just entered into the realm of barzakh. Until the time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes us out from the graves and out from the. And everyone things that happen in this world can affect people in barzakh, absolutely. And there are some things that can happen in barzakh that can affect even here. It can go both ways. Usually only this way though. No, I'm just saying because it's not that common. The reason I say that is because most people do not have the spiritual acclimate and blessing from Allah to be able to affect this world from barzakh. It's very rare. There are very few people like that can reverse that way. Ahl Bayt would be like one, but others, no. Most people can't. Yes?
So if someone had missed prayers, and would it be, let's say, like wajib on them if they were to spend, let's say, extra time doing a mustahab prayer or a mustahab dua, instead to spend that time making up the prayers?
It's not wajib. So what happens is, okay, it becomes wajib if there's no time left to for example, to make up your prayer. So if I know that, okay, you know what, I'm going to be dying very soon, I don't have the time to be doing all these mustahab things, then you have to do your wajib prayer. However, for the prayer specifically, you can, for example, do a mustahab prayer and do your qada wajib prayers later. That's fine. With fasting, no. You have to make up the fasting that you owe within the rules of fasting before you can do mustahab fast.
What if the person cannot afford it, and these days it's kind of business, and then they're buying prayer?
Well, you cannot buy prayer. You cannot buy prayer for somebody who's alive. So if the person is alive, they have to make up their prayer. They have to make up their fast. The only time you can allocate money for somebody to do that is when the person passes away.
Okay,
Yes.
On that subject, somebody buying the prayer, if somebody misses the prayer due to disobedience, so I don't care for the prayer. I don't care. I missed 1 year, no problem. 5 years, no problem. For them, this way is very limited benefit, if there is any, because he was missing the prayer purposefully. But this is basically for those people who miss by mistake here and there, few here and there. They will benefit from this process, from their money. You hire somebody to pray, their children pray for them. For them, those who are disobeying God, they may not benefit from this process. So you cannot buy Allah's mercy with money.
Or maybe the son was sick, or maybe
Yes.
the mother don't have any son, or the daughters they can't do that. Or
Yes, or son who he was busy and he wants to pay somebody to pray for his father, he can do it.
yes, I know.
And this usually benefit those people who miss here and there, not disobeying God. They didn't intend to disobey God. They were, busy or miss here and there. Not regularly missing every day. Fajr prayer, we are sleeping. We are sleeping.
Yes.
No, we wake up. Sometimes we don't wake up. Most of the time we wake up. Sometimes we don't wake up. For those type of people, the process is there. But generally, those who disobey, it's just scholars have opinion that it may not benefit them.
Allah. Yes.
Was Ibn Taymiyyah living by the time Imam Muhammad Sadiq was living?
No, Ibn Taymiyyah was living at the time of about 700 Hijri.
700.
Right. Imam Sadiq Islam was around the year 135, 140. Something like that. Yes, sir.
Other than the hadith saying that, one thing that'll guarantee that we don't get shafa'a is not taking our prayer seriously, is there anything else that would, for a mu'min person guarantee they would not receive shafa'a?
Yes, we have several narrations about other things. For example, we have one from Imam Qadim ﷺ, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَحْسِبْ نَفْسَهُ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ مَرَّةٍ. So this is the hadith from Imam Qadim ﷺ. He said, not amongst us, they will not be with us, the one who doesn't account themselves every day. So self-accounting, muhasaba, this is the hadith of Imam. He said, they will not be with us. What that means, basically, they will not get our shafa'a. It will be very, very difficult for the one who doesn't do self-accounting to receive that shafa'a. Muhasaba means self-accounting, means a person who sits down at some point in their day and says, okay, what did I do today? Did I commit any sins? What mustahab things, etc. Everyone has their own type of accounting that they will take. Yes. So that's one, but there are others as well.
Abu Hanifa was a student of Jafar Sadiq, that's as I heard. And the school of thought, the fourth school of thought came after the passing of, during the Imam Jafar Sadiq, Abu Hanifa was one of the school of thought, or really happened, the school of thought happened after the passing of Imam Jafar Sadiq?
During the time of Imam Sadiq ﷺ, there were various schools of thought. And when they say school, it's because there was a famous teacher and people listened to that teacher and followed what that teacher said, the ideology of that teacher. Abu Hanifa was one of them, and he lived during the time of Imam Sadiq. To say that Abu Hanifa was a student of Imam Sadiq ﷺ is a little bit misleading.
Okay.
Because he did learn from Imam Sadiq, and he studied with Imam Sadiq, but he has different opinion than Imam Sadiq ﷺ, right? Because we have to be honest, he has different opinion than Imam Sadiq. So when we say he's somebody's student of Imam Sadiq, he would be following what Imam Sadiq has to say.
You're not a good student.
There you go. Yes, thank you. That's an excellent way to put it. But
Actually, he was not a student of
He himself says that if I did not study two years with him, I would be destroyed.
Yeah, he mentions that himself, because that's the reality. He attests to the knowledge of Imam Sadiq ﷺ, and even somebody like him, he had to admit that, I can't say that, for example, I am at the level of Imam Sadiq. Because it's not the case. It's obviously not the case. Yes.
I want to mention also that in regards to the subject that Imam Sajjad alayhi salam in the Book of Rights, there's a right upon the teacher. Obviously, I mean, unless the teacher's trying to mislead you purposefully, but if they're and that makes them not a teacher, obviously. But a real teacher, they have rights. So by kind of like disobeying, or kind of makes them a bad student, not giving the rights to the teacher.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Would you repeat what
So the brother said that those of you who may be familiar with Imam Sajjad والسلام, has a book called Risalat al-Huquq, the Treatise of Rights. And this book, Imam goes over all the things that have a haqq, a right on you, and how you are supposed to treat those things. For example, your parents, your children, your neighbors, and so on and so forth. Your body parts, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that, if you read this book and you follow it, you will be a complete Muslim. A complete Muslim. Inshallah, maybe one day we can get there. One of the portions of this book is what right the teacher has over you. And what brother was mentioning is that if in order for somebody to be a real student, they would have to give the teacher its proper rights. And we see that this wouldn't be the case with those who claim that they are students of Imam Sadiq ﷺ, but they didn't show the proper respect to their teacher. Yes?
So you mentioned muhasabah several times in the past few weeks. I was wondering if you had some practical advice on like how you would, for example, do it every day, maybe like at night. What things would you account for? And
so muhasabah is an excellent tool for you to be able to progress spiritually. And all of the ulama, there's no exception, will tell you that if you wish to progress spiritually, you must do muhasabah. You must do self-accounting. Now, spiritual wayfaring, spiritual progression, spirituality is just like any other endeavor that you will enter into. Although it's the most important of all endeavors, because it's your eternal endeavor. Right? The things of this world are just going to go with you to the time of death. But the spiritual thing is going to go with you forever. But just like anything else, it has to be done in an organized fashion. If you were to try to become successful at something, let's say, for example, I want to be a successful, doctor, thank you. Okay. If I want to become a successful doctor, I have to figure out what it takes to become a doctor. I have to have an organized schedule and plan that I need to take this class and that class. I can't just enter into university and take any class I want and expect, okay, after this many years, I'm just going to become a doctor. It's not going to happen. One has to see what they have to do. And they have to budget their time, organize their time, and set for this goal. Spirituality is the same thing. If a person, for example, believes that, okay, sometimes I'm going to pray, sometimes I'm not going to pray, sometimes I'm going to read this dua, maybe other times I'm going to do this, and it's very unorganized and it's all over the place. This is not going to gain you it's going to give you very, very, very little benefit. There's no benefit in this, very little. Because what's driving the person is not their aql. If the aql is driving, then it will be very organized and it will be methodical and with a set plan. What's driving a person who's all over the place is their desire. It's their hawa. Right? We call it hawa in English would be caprice. It takes them from one place to another. One day I feel like reciting dua qumayl. Next day I don't feel like reciting. I'm going to recite something, or I don't want to recite anything. It's not organized. Real spirituality is very organized, and a person is making things part of themselves. Allama Tabatabai has a short book, which is an excellent book. It's called Lubb al-Labab, the kernel of the kernels. So what he talks about is how to progress spiritually. One of the very important things is, one, don't take a burden more than what you can bear. In fact, do less than what you think you can do. But be very, very sincere with what you are doing and understand that you want to get to the reality of what you're doing. For example, if I sit and I recite 100 du'as a day, but I'm not paying attention in any of them, what's the benefit? But if I take the time to recite a very short dua, but I'm concentrated, I understand what I'm saying, my heart is present, then the benefit will be very strong. See, it's very different. So, how to do muhasabah? A person should first make their plan. What is it that I want to do in a day? Let's say, for example, somebody's at the very beginning of spirituality, at the very, very bottom level. The first thing they have to do is have an intention and plan, called irada. So once they do that, then they can say, okay, here's my plan. I'm going to account myself for these particular things. For example, did I commit any sin today? It's the first thing. You have to eliminate all sins. You have to. This is the only way for spiritual progress. You have to become muttaqi. You can't expect to progress spiritually if you're committing sins. It's not going to happen. So that's the first. The person has to count their sinning. Then, for example, their wajibat. Keep it simple. Did I make all my prayers today? Okay. Account that. You don't need to make it very complicated. If you want to add something, maybe a short dua, very short, something small. Recite this dua. 1 page of Quran, something very simple. Keep it easy. Because the goal is not, for example, to, okay, just do this 1 day, 2 days. You want to continuously do this for 10, 20 years, 30 years, and never break. After, for example, 1 year, maybe a person starts adding more things. Okay, now I'm reciting 2 duas. They can do other things. Doesn't mean they can't. Like, for example, let's say one day I do feel like reciting 5 pages. Go ahead, it's fine. But make sure you account for the minimal thing. For, you know, at the end of the day, account for the minimal thing. That's your, you set a bare minimum level for yourself first. So, a very practical advice, I do this myself. Make a spreadsheet. Very simple spreadsheet. You can make it on Microsoft Word, whatever it is that you, or Microsoft Excel, I don't know. I don't use Microsoft Office. I use Open Office. I refuse to pay Microsoft money. Thank you, Ali. So, very simple. Just make a spreadsheet. It takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes of your time. Just make a checkpoint. Okay, I made my prayers today, check. I did this, check. And account for some basic things. How much money did I spend today? That's a big one. People don't think about that. Allah gives you a risk. Account yourself. And that's actually beneficial for you both in this world and next world. How much money did I spend today? Okay, I spent this much. Things like that. Very, very simple. You don't need to make it complicated. As you progress, inshallah, you make it more complicated. You make it more, you account for more things. In the beginning, it's just that. And muhasabah, very, very important. It's the most important tool. It's about organizing yourself and organizing your spiritual growth. This is the way that you're going to benefit. And with muhasabah, and ulama have mentioned this. And I will quote one very famous scholar, Sheikh Hassan Zadeh Amuli. Some of you are familiar with him, some of you may not be. He's a marja in the city of Qom. And this is his words, not mine. He said, with muhasabah, proper muhasabah, and having hudur al-qalb, your presence of the heart, and muraqabah. Muraqabah is where you control your thoughts. Throughout the day, okay, I'm kind of drifting off, wait, astaghfirullah, Allah's watching, let me get back. Proper muhasabah, proper muraqabah, done over a significant portion of your life. He said it can lead somebody to be able to even see visions while they recite Quran. It's very real. It's not something that, it's not, I mean, you can see this from many ulama have mentioned things like this. Look at works of ulama tabatabai. How did these scholars get there? How is it they have, for example, they were able to see such things? How is it that they benefit so much from salat? It's because they are very active in their spirituality. Just like the same way you balance your accounts, you have to balance these accounts. So muhasabah, that's my best advice for you. Keep a very simple spreadsheet, for example, start off easy. First thing you want to do is make sure you do your wajibat and stay away from haramat. That's it. Don't even worry about anything else. Until you're able to master that, don't even worry about anything else. This is the absolute most important thing. And some people may end up taking their whole life to master that. That's okay. That's okay. If you get there, that's an excellent wonderful level to get to become free of sin. And this is beautiful. It's a great thing. And that's the first thing. Just focus on that. Once you get that down, start adding other things.
Thank you.
Sallallahu Muhammad wa
السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا علي أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا إمام الحسن والحسين سيدة شباب أهل الجنة وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا الله من عوانك وأنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات الله.